Welcome to the Tekhelet interviews, a series of thought-provoking interviews Ptil Tekhelet will hold with leading rabbis, scholars, and researchers relating to all aspects of the beautiful mitzvah of Tekhelet. I'm Rafi Hecht, your host for today's event, and Dr. Baruch Sturman, CEO of Ptil Tekhelet, is on the feed as well. Today's interview will be conducted in English. Our plan moving forward is to alternate between English and Hebrew for each event, which will provide access to the wider Jewish audience. The format is as follows. This session is scheduled for 1 hour. The speaker will be asked a series of Tekhelet-related questions, which will last approximately 45 minutes. After that, we will take user questions for the last 15 minutes. You can send us questions during this program in the comments section. We would love to hear from you and continue this discussion, so send any comments on the program, suggestions for future speakers, or follow-up questions for the speakers to interviews@tekhelet.com, and we will relay them. The sessions will be recorded and archived, and you will find them and more information at tekhelet.com/Tekhelet interviews. Again, that's tekhelet.com/Tekhelet interviews. Our first guest speaker is Rav Shabtai Rappaport. Rav Shabtai served as the head of the Beit Midrash at Bar-Ilan University and started Forum Nitzotzot, which pairs Torah and halachic figures with scientists in different fields. Rav Shabtai is a descendant of a prominent rabbinic family, including the Shach, the Kosker Rebbe, and the Shemesh Shmuel. He is the son-in-law of Rav Moshe Tendler and grandson-in-law of Rav Moshe Feinstein. And he also edited 3 volumes of the response to Igros Moshe. So it's therefore no surprise that he has direct smicha from Rav Moshe himself. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So Shabtai, tell us a bit about yourself.
You told more than should be told. The thing is that the legendary connection, meaning I never met a Kotzker Rebbe, but the tradition and the living tradition with Rav Moshe Feinstein and my father-in-law, drove me to try to investigate, not trust the written word. And this was my nature since childhood. And this is what I'm doing till this day with my white hair. And I don't jump into any new technologies until I understand them, and this is why we failed at the beginning. I'm always like 5 years behind. That's it, more or less.
Okay, very nice. So tell us, Rav Shabtai, what was your first experience with Tekhelet?
Tekhelet, the person responsible for the introduction to Tekhelet was Professor Zeiderman, who wrote many years ago about the chemistry of indigo and the chemistry of the Murex tunculus. Mm-hmm. And he showed that the molecule is almost identical, but one has indigotin and a bromoindigotin. So it was amazing that we are almost there. We almost found the Tekhelet. Why almost? Because the Murex tunculus, who has molecules of indigotin and bromoindigotin, yields purple color. Mm-hmm. And this is it's not fresh news. It's old news. I read with avid interest the Sefer Tekhelet of the Radziner. Mm-hmm. And the Radziner brings Gizenius, who actually he brings the Tiferet Israel in the Mishnayot, who quotes Gizenius about the Murex. He doesn't call it Murex, but he describes the Murex trunculus animal or whatever, the chilazon. And he says that this produced the Tyrian purple, and Gizenius wrote Thesaurus on the Talmud and Tanakh in the Talmud, and he says that Tekhelet is derived from this mollusc, from this animal. And he says that the color of Tekhelet was purple, while the color for Argaman was red. And Rabbi Israel Lifshitz, in his Akdama for the Mishnayot Bigdei Keuna, he says it's impossible because we have a tradition that Tchelet was blue. And the Tchelet is purple, that's not it. And the Radziner quotes him. So the Radziner wanted something blue, and blue like the sky in the day, like the Rambam says, not like Rashi quotes on Zifri, the evening sky, which could be described as purple, but the sky in the day, light blue. So he looked elsewhere, and he started off with his idea of the animal. But the basic idea was that if the mollusk was okay and produced blue dye, then this is certainly the Tchelet. And we need two things. A, that will be able to dye wool. It'll adhere to wool. It won't come off when you wash it, and it'll be blue. So of course you could claim that the names of colors were changed during the times. People show it that over thousands of years, the names of the colors changed. It's a process in all languages, so we don't really know. But when it's described like the sky in the day, it's more or less definite. Homeros describes the sea as wine color, as possesses wine color in Odyssea. But when the Rambam says it's like the sky, so it has to be what we call Tchelet now. And the purple is not Tchelet. So this was the problem. So when there was a solution to, when Baruch and it was, I think, Ari Greenspan came over to the yeshiva one day and said they want to show me something. I think Elsner was there too. And they say, here, we'll show you how you can make it into a blue dye. This was really, by exposing it to the sun, this was a real, one of my life's highlights. But then we had another discovery, which was amazing. Professor Zeiderman argued that it makes no reason to take such a beautiful color like purple and expose it to the sun to make it into blue. Why should the Torah say such a thing? Question that makes sense. And so he said that purple, the Tchelet should be purple, not blue. And actually, in the Targum HaShivim, and probably they had living Tchelet in the Septuagint times. It was written in the times of Beit Sheni under Ptolemaeus, the Egyptian king, and they consistently translate Tchelet as Baruch. What's the word? You tell me. The Greek word that they used.
Hyacinthina.
Oh, right. Okay. So it's purple. It's a word that means yantina, right? It means purple, like the yakinton, the yakin flower that is purple. So we have living evidence that Tchelet was purple. So how come we have a tradition that it's blue? So of course we are Orthodox Jews and we follow the tradition. And will not pasken halacha like the Septuagint, like the translation of the Tanakh to Greek. But it was an amazing question. It bothered me no end. We thought that we found the Tchelet, and I started wearing tzitzit with Tchelet. It was a real highlight. But how come a purple thing that the Shiv'im, the witnesses, they saw it, the eyewitnesses called it purple, how did it become blue?
Mm-hmm.
And there was something unbelievable. The production of the Tchelet happened to be in a tool shed near the yeshiva. Baruch used it for all his trials, and he had the lab there to try to produce Tchelet on a semi-commercial scale. It was starting, it was budding. He always dreamed to make it into an industry of Tchelet and have Am Yisrael wear Tchelet. And one day, it was Parashat Truma, Parasha that Tchelet is mentioned the first time. And we had Seudah Shlishit, that used to last for a long time. Yedidia Browner, it called it Zman Rabbeinu Lotam. It never ends, the Suda Shlishet. And he comes over, he started his working in the tool shed already. And he said that when we finish, he wants to show me something. And he showed me something unbelievable. I saw it as a real siman from Hashem Yisbarach that solved all the problems. The story, Baruch can tell the story, but the story as I remember it, was that he was asked to prepare purple chut for tzitzit. That the Tekhelet would be purple. So Baruch did not object. If people think that the Tekhelet is purple, okay, he's not a satmar that says everyone has to behave like I say. And he was kind enough to prepare wool, for purple wool. He sent the purple wool to the tzitzis maker in Yerushalayim, the one who spins the chutim for the tzitzit. And when he came to collect it, there was no purple. Or when he told the guy, come, he gave him the address and says, come and collect it from the spinner. He came and there was no purple thread. Twice, 3 times, there was no purple thread. So so the guy asked Baruch, if you don't want to give me a purple thread, okay, but why do you make me go lechinam to this person twice, 3 times? So Baruch went there, he told me he went there, and he asked the spinner, what do you do with my wool? I gave you purple and you give me blue. So the guy said, forget, not me, I spin. I'm not a chemist, all I know is to spin tzitzis wool. And I know this spinner, I was by him, and he's an old-fashioned tzitzis spinner. So then Baruch says that he noticed in the middle of the week, the Shabbos chainik on. So he was curious, Yerushalmi don't waste money, and the chainik was on. So he asked him why the chainik is on. So he told him because they take the threads and steam them on the chainik. So Baruch says, wow. And then when he came to his lab, he saw that if you take purple wool and you steam it, it becomes blue. So it's a totally different system of making Tekhelet. You make purple, and then you steam the threads, and they become blue. So it's amazing. The real word for Tekhelet is really purple. It's true. But for tzitzit, it was blue. So for example, in Bigdei Kehuna, you make purple, and I explained the steaming. The wool is a protein, and it jumps, it's flexible. So the thread will open. It has to be spun 8 times, and 4 times. It has to be kaful shmone, and it unravels. In order to fix it, like you do with an egg, you want the egg white to stay fixed, you steam it or cook it, and then the protein is denatured. So this is what happened in the thread, and you have to do it. And I checked old weaving in Google, in the then Google, I don't know if it was Google or Yahoo, if Google was already or not, but I checked the techniques of old weaving, and I saw when they did things like this, franzim, thread that is freestanding, you had to steam it. In the ancient times, they used to steam it also. And but when they weaved it into a cloth, you didn't have to do it because it's that the steaming ruins the wool. So really, in Bigdei Kehuna, the Tekhelet was purple, and the Targum HaShivim is right, it's purple. It becomes Tekhelet when you do tzitzit. So the Masoret is right, it fits with Targum HaShivim, no problem. This Motzai Shabbat Truma was, again, one of the added highlights in my life. This is the story.
Right. Okay, that's very good. On that note, I wanted to mention, because there's a lot of information that can confuse a lot of people if they don't know. I know that one thing that Dr. Zeiderman said, and this is more so a segue to what you were talking about. I'm going to share a screen. This is a picture that Dr. Zeiderman has shared with me. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a yes. So this is a picture that Dr. Zeiderman has mentioned, and he's very big into this. That if you heat the monobromo indigo, you get the color. You consistently get the color that's on the second from the left, which is a blue violet, as opposed to having a range of colors that goes anywhere from blue violet to light blue. So I know that one thing that Dr. Zeiman has mentioned, at least in recent times when I've spoken with him, is that he doesn't mean that the color is dafka purple. It's more so that there's like blue violet, which has traces of purple, and one can see it very clearly in the second to left. So I mean, so I'm just wondering if this was the resultant color after the spinners heated up the wool, as opposed to having the different ranges of colors that comes out when the more modern methods are used. Do you have any insight on that?
Sure. The picture shows what really happened. I had a long phone hours with Professor Zeiderman, claiming that it should not be exposed to the sun and separate the bromide from the indigo tin, but which the sun does. Bromide does this under sunlight. But anyway, Baruch Hashem, it happened and it worked.
Baruch Hashem.
The way I saw it, it happened in this Motzai Shabbat Parashat Truma.
Yes. It's very fascinating because Truma is there's a lot of significance with that. So I guess that also answers that answers your first experience with Tekhelet. But what were the triggers that got you to commit to Tekhelet? I think you addressed that briefly in your previous answer.
Yes, this was the reason I really saw Yad Hashem in that. And it's a mitzvah min Torah. We wear tzitzis, and we have a problem because we wear arba kanfot, and we are mevatel aseh the same way you wear arba kanfot without tzitzit. You mevatel mitzvah aseh. The same thing with Tekhelet when the Tekhelet is available.
Right.
So it's actually very simple. Once you're convinced this is the Tekhelet, there is no problem anymore.
Not only is there no problem, there you might actually be mechuyav to wear it because.
Right. Sure.
Yes. Okay. So tell us about the early days when Ptil Tekhelet's factory was in your yeshiva.
Yes, the smell was horrible. The people of Efrat, I think, when you passed near it, it smelled as if I don't want to say, but davar shebikdusha, mashal like this. But if long rotten bodies of dogs were buried there, this is what the smell reminded me of. It's terrible smell, but it was very exciting. It was something not everyone has the zchut to see in his lifetime. Something new comes that is being born, that is going to put the nation in a crossroad.
Mm-hmm.
Because mitzvah tzitzit is a fundamental mitzvah as defining us as Jews. If you remember, Rabbi Yehuda says Yom Le'Yabasha, nehepchu metzulim. So he says Hakerna lemia chotemet velemia ptilim. The brit and the tzitzit are our side. So I thought it brought Am Yisrael to a junction. Now we can have a full brit with Kodesh Baruch.
Wow. Besides the absolute smell, which by the way, there was one time I did a Tekhelet making experiment, and someone mentioned that the smell reminded him of the fish market in Machne Yehuda.
No,
so that's
it's a defamation against Machne Yehuda.
Huh?
It's a defamation against Machne Yehuda.
No, but it reminded him. Somebody told me that it reminded him of this traditional fish markets when people are selling fresh fish. That's what it smells like.
Yes, it's
very strong.
Very strong, very poignant. You're right. And in the first years, the tzitzit smelled a little bit. This is what showed it's authentic.
Yes.
It carried the smell still.
Yes. Did the fact that you were going against the tradition, the Mitzvah of your family and Rabbeim trouble you, and did that factor into your making a decision toward Tekhelet? Specifically, what was Rav Lichtenstein's reaction? And what about your father-in-law, Rav Moshe Tendler?
Oh, he wears Tekhelet. And I must tell you something good, at Lashon Hora, but Rav Dichovsky, you know him, a famous Dayan, but he can think, he has an open mind. He came to my yeshiva to say a shir, and I put him in my room, I parked him in my room because we were eating lunch, he didn't want to eat lunch. And I prepared the shiur, the mekorot for Tekhelet. So he told me, really admonished me for wearing Tekhelet, go against the tradition, father, exactly your words. Then when I came to pick him up, he told me, I want Tekhelet, please get me Tekhelet.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked him, what happened? In the meantime, you swallowed something? So he said, no, I saw your mekorot, and I see that you know what you are talking about. I don't understand the word, but I know what you are talking about, so I want to wear Tekhelet. And my father-in-law, the same thing, he wears Tekhelet. He said, I see that you know what you are talking about, so he wore Tekhelet. Now, about the tradition, so it's, I had a discussion with a tremendous Talmid Chacham, with a brisk tradition. I don't want to mention, he's not with us anymore. So I'll say, Rav Lichtenstein, it was the Rosh Yeshiva of Har Etzion, and he told me that the brisk tradition is that we need Masoret for the Tekhelet. So you cannot do Tekhelet without a Masoret. Actually, it's really misreading of the Beit Halevi's letter. But it's a tradition, that's what he held. So I told him, okay, but we believe you are a Rambamisme. And you say that Zot Torah, one of the Ikarei Emunah, that the Torah will not change. So you think there is no tradition. We have hundreds of years, there is no Tekhelet. So how are we going to have Tekhelet? So he tells me the Mashiach will come and show us the Tekhelet. So I said, very well, how will you know that he's the Mashiach? So he said he has simanim. So I told him, listen, you'll believe a Mashiach al pi simanim will tell you about the Tekhelet. And the simanim of the Tekhelet you disregard. It doesn't seem very logical because you say that the Masoret will start with Mashiach, that has simanim of Mashiach, so the whole power of the Tekhelet, of the new tradition, will start from simanim. So why don't you accept the simanim of the Tekhelet? He thought about it and he says, I have no answer. And
Rav Shabtai, do you remember if Rav Lichtenstein? I know that at the earliest days, Rav Lichtenstein was very cautious, should we say, and was not a real fan of people wearing Tekhelet. But I think there was a little bit of an evolution over the years.
I'm telling you, it was. We drove to Asifat Rashi Yeshivot. It was like now, before Shavuot. And he told me the shiur that he's going to give in Shavuot is against wearing Tekhelet because it's against our Masoret. So I spoke to him, we discussed him, I told him this idea. And then I asked the Talmid what was Rav Lichtenstein's shiur in Shavuot's night. So he said that the shiur was whether he should say Shechianu when you put on Tekhelet.
Right.
What was the answer? Yes or no?
He said it's like Rav Lichtenstein. There are two sides to this question. So against the tradition, listen, we are in Eretz Yisrael, which is not our tradition, but my tradition, personal tradition from Rav Nezer, that he wanted to come to Eretz Yisrael, and he found the reason why the Gedolim in the previous generations did not come to Eretz Yisrael. Tshuvat Afnudale, the Yoredea, famous Tshuva. Now, the reason that it was not done before, there was no tradition, simple because they didn't have it. They didn't know the secret, and it's really embarrassing, it's really embarrassing. William Cole found the mollusk, what then came the Murex stroncolus in 1648. And again, I was very excited when Baruch then gave me the photocopy of this article to the Cambridge, I think it was the Philosophical Society. And he describes how he found this mollusk. He killed all the mollusks in the British where he was on the beach until he found a mollusk that could, with his body liquid, you could die. And he presented it, tried to present to the king, but then the king was beheaded by Cromwell. Anyway, so nothing came out of it. But we had it since 1648. And you know that before Gzerot Tachvetat, people expected the Geula to come in 1648. It was Bezot Yavo Aaron El HaKodesh. Bezot was Gematria Tafchet. And the Tchelet was available. What was the problem? It was purple. All you had to do is to do what Baruch did, make threads and see that they become blue. If you try it, it'll happen. Anyone could try it. You don't need lab, you don't need physics. You dye it purple, it'll become blue by itself. Amazing, and we missed this chance. Now Rabbi Yeshua Mikutna writes to the Radziner that he's very happy about the research for the Tchelet because he's sure that Tchelet will come in the time of the Geula. The Ari HaKadosh says that Tchelet will come in time of the Geula. So the Tchelet came in such a way, that hit me at least on the head. You just try it. It's purple, you steam it, which they always did, and it becomes blue. Unbelievable. So it didn't happen in 1648, it's not Tafchet. It happened years later, but still we are going towards the Geula Baruch Hashem. It was an unbelievable sign.
Baruch Hashem. So that explains about how you were able to go against the original tradition of your family, and Rebbeim, and how you were able to make the jump. Now, I was advised that your string ratio and tying method is as follows: Rambam and Radzin Chabad 7, 8, 11, 13. So I'm wondering what the reasoning behind your string ratio and tying.
Very simple. Very simple. The first Goen that wanted to renew the mitzvah of Tchelet was the Radziner.
Yes.
And he wrote a sefer, and he researched it in a way, real Goen. And we have a rule, Kvar Hora Zaken, when a Talmid Chochem rules something, paskin something, if I don't have a proof to show that he's wrong, then we follow his psak. That's a famous rule. It's in the Gemara, Kvar Hora Zaken, that you don't change an existing ruling of a Gottel unless you can prove it, that he was wrong, that he was seriously wrong. And the only wrong thing by the Radziner was the identification of the animal that you take the Tchelet from. But otherwise, the Sefer is, every word could be set in gold. So he says that this should be the way to be the Kshira, like Chabad, like Balatanya says, to make a pesher between Shitat HaRambam and the Kabbalah of Hasidei Ashkenaz, of making Hashem Echad, of making the 7, 8, 11, 13. So he said it, so I followed the Shita.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Very unimaginative. That's it. And also to have one Chut Chelet like the Rambam, also the Radziner says that this is the right Shita. He said it's unbelievable. The daybreak is Mishiyavchin the Tchelet velavan. So the Gemara says you see it in the dark. So he says, no, ben tchelet sheba lelavan sheba. So he claimed ben tchelet sheba lelavan sheba in the chut of the tzitzit, where the tchelet joins the white. According to Shitat HaRambam, you should notice what is tchelet and what is lavan in the same thread. So this is Shitat HaRambam. And so once I'm very orthodox in my nature. I don't break traditions. So he said he passed like this, so why not follow?
Okay. Now, because you have yichus with Rav Moshe, you're gonna get a few questions regarding a lot of his psakim. Rav Moshe wrote many tshuvot. Did he have a stance on the Tchelet the Radziners wore, and for that matter, the scientific advancements occurring with the Murex Tchelet as of the 1970s? If so, what would they be? As clearly, lots of advancement was made prior to Otto Welsner's discovery in the 1980s.
Okay, I'll tell you something that someone else told me.
Oh.
Zalman Koren, who did the work on the Beit Midrash,
Yeah.
And he heard the shiur. He objected to the Tekhelet, not Tekhelet. He heard shiur, and he became. Following, he comes over to me and tells me, you know what's the nest that we have? That the Raziner was not accepted, was rejected by all Gdolei Ador. Because if the Raziner was accepted, nothing could be moved into the Shita of the Murex. Because this was the Shita of the Tekhelet already. So Kodesh Baruch Hu held that he'll be rejected, so the Murex could be accepted. Yeah, I spoke to Reb Moshe. Reb Moshe knew about the Raziner. Of course, he knew about the Tekhelet. And Reb Moshe was very, very conservative in his opinion. He said that something that was rejected by Gdolei Ador, he didn't want to go into it. Whether to the merit of the thing, he says that he knows about the Raziner, he knows that his idea was not accepted. He knew that from first hand. So he said, you have a new system, so let's wait and see. He did not, he said, if you think that it's right, you can wear it, of course, but he did not want to commit himself whether the thing was right or not, whether the shikul was right or not. It was scientific thing that, actually it was not really scientific, it's very interesting, but it seemed to be like something that you need science to show it. But after you strip all the science, you can arrive to the conclusion from very simple premises, very common sense premises, very common sense halacha premises. You don't need science to do that. Of course, there are science things that show all the dying houses in many places, in Tyra and in Jalame, but you don't need it. It's common sense.
Yeah. Now, I guess this is going to be the last question before I take questions from the audience. There are many halachic questions that arise during the production process. On the one hand, one would argue that the most stringent stance to be taken so as to be inclusive as possible. But on the other hand, that can make Tekhelet even more expensive, right? Do you have an opinion on how to strike a balance? Like, for example, I know that Ptil Tekhelet, for example, when they make Tekhelet, they use certain chemicals. As you mentioned before, even if you just heat the wool, and this is Dr. Zeiderman's thing, that even if you just heat the wool without any chemicals, then you can still produce a bluish color, a more violet bluish color. So technically speaking, the chemicals are not even necessary for the process. However, you're looking at something which will cost a lot more money than it does right now. So is there a happy medium between the current process and a process which is like the super most stringent, right? And reach a happy balance that it'll be affordable for Am Yisrael?
This is a very, very good question. And always striking a balance, it's always the most difficult thing that the posik can do. To strike a balance between two things that are really needed. Affordability is true. Many people don't wear Tekhelet because they don't have the money for that. Especially, Avrechim that are poor, they are really poor. And the Tekhelet is not something like a mezuzah that you have for life. It doesn't last for life. It wears, the tzitzis swell down, so it's something that you have to buy. I don't know. The question is very good, but I think that the production is to yield the best product. In fact, it should be the most. It should be stable. It should be a good product, as with the highest quality of the dyeing, of the durability of the wool. So I think this is the right way to go. And as far as the thing being affordable, I really believe that the more they'll produce, the more affordable it will become. Because it like everything, volume will make it possible for the price to go down. But this is a problem. The affordability is really a problem, which I don't have a solution.
Right, but in general, the mitzvah is, it's regarding production process. We've seen changes. Just adding on the question, we've seen changes in the process with many different things, like tefillin, and also the way our current talitot are made, because if you think about it, 100 years ago, a talit was one of the biggest reasons why many Ashkenazim do not wear talitot today, even, is because of the financial expense. 100 years ago, a talit would take about a year to make and would cost the rough equivalent of $10,000 today. Whereas today you can get for as little as $100 because the process was changed. Where's the Masorah? Same thing.
It became industrial.
It became industrialized. Same thing with tefillin. And now we can do beautiful tefillin with gasot. We don't have to worry about changing the shel rosh and shel yad every time the leather warps a little bit. So there's always changes to the process. So I guess from a halachic perspective, one can take a look, hey, at the mitzvah and say, hey, this is blue. This is from the Murex. It's good.
I just want to chime in here and say that let me just put my video on. I just want to say that part of the problem that we have, Rav Shabtai, is that it's hard to get a psak halacha out of Rabbanim. We're trying to improve production by using, for example, maybe by using ultrasound. But is ultrasound a problem with avodat yad, with everything having to be done by hand and having to be done with a proper intent? We're looking maybe to extend places where we can get the snails from. But what about a snail that doesn't come from the Mediterranean? It may be very, very much related to the particular type of a snail that was used in the ancient world. Chemically, biochemically, it's precisely the same. But is it something that would be considered the chila zone? These are types of questions that we at Ptil Tekhelet are trying to ask. And I have to be honest, it's hard to find Rabbanim who are going to, as Rav Tevger says, who have the broad shoulders to be willing to answer these questions.
Yes, because they don't see such a dire need for an answer. So why? But I think that your questions are basic questions in many things. Like Rafi said, there are basic questions that don't relate only to the Tchelet. And really, I don't think that that both your questions are a problem. About avodat yad and then purity of the type, all this definition of animals is something modern. It's, how to say, very 19th century. It is, I'm sure that Adam HaRishon did not use the various names, and also marine animals have very few names. We have dog, that's it. And so I don't think it really matters. I think that what matters are the tchunot, not the name. And what the Tosefta says, Shalom min achilazon psula, it simply means you produce from indigo, the same thing. But everything that comes, this is what the Ratzinder, I think the Ratzinder should be followed. He says the dog means a marine animal. Any marine animal that will produce the color is okay. So if you have several, then we should decide between them, he says. But if we have one, so that's it. So to have the kdukim, whether it's the same animal or not, in the science of classifying animals, no, I really don't think it matters. And the same thing with other methods. The other methods have to be reviewed, but I don't think this is the problem.
Okay, great. So there's still a few minutes left. I mean, we know we started late. I don't see any questions that were asked online. I mean, partially because some people were not able to get into Zoom. I mean, even though the link was shared. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions that were brought up prior to the event.
Maybe Rafi, just since I don't think that the chat is working, but if anybody has any particular questions that they want to ask Rav Rappaport with respect to Tekhelet, you can unmute yourself and let's see if we can ask him that way. If not, then Rafi, then we'll go on to the other ones. But if anybody has any particular questions, any specific questions, unmute yourself and we'll try to do this in an orderly way.
Fantastic.
Good evening. Good evening. This is Shana Ziderman. I would like just to mention that my father, Dr. Israel Ziderman, joined us at the second half. So thank you very much. My father, they spoke a lot about your input to all of the characters and all the development of the Tekhelet Foundation, the Ptil Tekhelet. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I told you, I owe you, Father, my initial involvement with the whole subject. It's a great debt.
This is David Hoyta speaking. I just had a question for Dr. Sturman. Could you clarify what you meant, what the question was, how you were intending to use ultraviolet, I think you said, or infrared? Could you?
No, it wasn't ultraviolet, it was ultrasound. You know, one of the things that we do at Ptil Tekhelet, and Rav Shabtai mentioned that we had a lab back in his yeshiva. So in those days, the research was about actually just getting anything to be able to be dyed on an industrial scale. But we've never stopped trying to do research in order to improve efficiencies. One of the ideas that we had was to use ultrasound when we're doing the dye bath as a method of
Baruch, may I interrupt you for a second? I enabled people to chat. I didn't realize the chat is not working. Now it's working.
Okay, so I'll finish off, and then anybody else who has any questions, they can use the chat. What we're looking to do is to see how we can impregnate the wool, introduce the dye into the wool in a more efficient way. A lot of times when we do the dyeing, we end up taking the strings out or the wool out, and we see that it didn't adhere as well as we would like to, and we have to end up dyeing the wool a second time, or even throwing out the wool because it doesn't have the quality that we want. One of the possible ideas is to use ultrasound, which is kind of another substitute for heat. You've got all these problems when you're making Tekhelet. You have to make sure that the halacha is okay, you have to make sure that the dye is okay, and you have to make sure that the wool is okay. So by the time you're done with all of these things, you get yourself in a big problem because everything seems to contradict the other. But so too much heat is no good. So maybe ultrasound would be a possible way of getting around that. And it's one of the things that we're looking at. But again, it was an issue that we had to ask, or that we do want to ask. And it's good to hear that Rav Shabtai feels that wouldn't be a problem in terms of avodat yad and
Of course not. Of course not, because dyeing by cooking is also not avodat yad. The fire underneath is also not. It's not yad. But no, there's absolutely no problem. If you want a letter to this effect, I'm not a posek. I can write it right now. I was not aware of this problem, but sure.
Okay. One person actually just wrote, just to confirm, Rav Moshe said that there's no problem that if the person thinks that's the true Tekhelet, right?
No.
Beautiful.
He's told me, if you think halachically, if you did the halachic work, and you think that this is right, you're entitled, no one can stop you. We don't have a masoret against it, and we don't have a masoret for it. Not that, he didn't say that anyone can decide. Anyone that does the halacha evaluation. And I had a smicha from him, so he said they can ask an halacha. So if you think so, the only objection is the previous generations. Mm-hmm. So if I would try to revive the Radziner's shita, he would be against it because it was rejected. But if there is a new thing and without objection, it's open area, why not?
Yeah. Okay, so there's another comment here. Will you discuss some of the other shitot of tying Tekhelet? That's more halachically acceptable, because you mentioned
and maybe also to sharpen that, Rav Shabtai, would you feel, since you are you wear Tekhelet according to the Rambam as an example, do you feel that it's a problem if somebody wears according to a different shita? Would it be problematic that maybe, and we've heard this from people that once they get into this question, well, if I follow the Ravid, which is 2 strings, then I'm not going according to the Rambam, and if I follow the Rambam, I'm not going according to the Ravid and Tosfot altogether. Maybe it's better I shouldn't even get involved in this question and not wear tchelet at all. What do you say to that?
Wonderful. So you're 100% right. So we should try not live in Eretz Yisrael because there are problems about mitzvot atluot ba'aretz. We should not strive for Beit HaMikdash with too many machlokot in Beit HaMikdash. We should do nothing. If you don't do anything that has a machloket, but you see that you are matir eshet ish according to shitot in halacha, and this is isur of karet of mitat beidin, and so for mitzvat aseh you will not do because you're afraid of opposing shitot. This is really extreme. I think the source is not yirat shamayim but laziness. So if you are in doubt about the shitot, go and learn the shitot if you're interested. If not, follow your Rav, assuming your Rav learned them or his Rav learned. But anyone, elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chaim, chas v'shalom, to say that we know now without Sanhedrin that one is right and one is wrong. I personally think that the Ravid will agree that the Rambam is also good. But this is a big shiur, not for now. But to say I don't do it because I'm not yoytze the other shita, I don't think it's something you can even should not be even repeated.
Okay, so there's another person who wrote
like there is a machloket Rashi v'Rabbeinu Tam and Shimush Rabbi about the tefillin, right? So you don't want to put tefillin because you don't know what shita works. So it's no, absolutely.
Makes a lot of sense. Someone else wrote, does the Hebrew Tekhelet not mean blue? Sounds like kachol, but the kachol without the chet. If Hebrew is blue, why should it be purple? I'm not exactly sure about the question.
I didn't understand. I don't understand.
I think that the question is the relationship between the biblical word tchelet and the much, much later word in Hebrew of kachol.
No, I don't think that tchelet is kachol, I told you. No, I think that tchelet is a product. It's something, not kachol. I don't think it's a dye. That's what I explained before. I think that tchelet was translated correctly into purple. That's true. It's not kachol at all. It becomes kachol after you steam it. So we have a tradition that the tchelet of the tzitzit is like the sky in midday, but not when it clear sky. But tchelet is not a color.
Right. It's not a color. It's a commodity. It's a dyed wool of a specific group of colors, but that's as far as it goes.
Right.
Very good. I see that somebody is raising his hand. Anybody else wants to?
Yes. Yes. Hi.
Yeah.
My name is Mordechai Honig. I don't know if it was ever discussed in the past about the discussion of the actual color of the tcheles. And there's a synagogue in Beit Midrash, in Beit Knesset, in Dura Europos in Syria. There was this copy from the 3rd century, and there's actually frescoes, paintings of Mordechai Tzaddik in the story of Esther, and as well as the Kohen Gadol. And they have actually, the big Tcheles, they have the Kohen Gadol and Mordechai that went out, big Tcheles, and the color is exactly parallel, similar to the color that's produced today from the New York Stranglers. So like that.
The purple.
It's blue, exactly the exact color of the New York Stranglers that's produced today is a blue color, not a purple color.
Okay. I don't know.
It's actually the 3rd century, in the middle of Tkufas Amoraim, and the tcheles was very prevalent then, and if people were aware of the color, the correct color.
So very good. So the explanation is that since the end of Beit Sheni, when there was no Kohen Gadol, and Kohen Gadol lived only in folklore, so the tchelet that they saw was blue, right?
Yeah, the actual tchelet, the word, the tzitzit was blue, and it was actually indigo colors. The indigo colors, the painter, the artist actually used indigo color to represent the big tchelet for Mordechai Tzaddik and the Kohen Gadol as well.
Okay, it's beyond my. I admit it's beyond my understanding to see the significance of artists in halakha.
Okay.
It could be Tana de Messiah, but Professor Sperber wrote a very good book about the significance of paintings. He's an art expert, and he writes about the significance of paintings in halakha. And there is some liberty of artists. So, and also he has the available colors. I don't know what colors he could make and what colors he had. I have no idea. This is not area of knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was actually going to throw in that besides the fact that there's been that fresco since the 3rd century, there's actually some very interesting pieces from earlier on that suggest that the color might have been blue. I'm just gonna see if I can share my my screen here.
Where Rav Shabtai, when we started, we didn't have what Rafi is going to be talking about now. We didn't have the benefit of having any of these pieces that were available, not just the art pieces, but the fragments of fabric that have come to light over the last 20 years. The piece from Masada, there's a saddlecloth from Pazyryk, and especially the small piece of fabric that was found in the Bar Kokhba cave in Wadi Murbat.
Right, this is the known thing. This is known for many years.
Right, but not many years, but not from when we started. These they were sitting in drawers in the Rockefeller Museum, and only over the last 15 years or so were they analyzed to show that they were Murex, dyed with Murex trunculus, and that they were dyed some shade of blue. So this was also a very, very, like if you say Tana Messiah, this is a very nice proof, or at least something which can really bolster the opinion or the blueness
of the Tekhelet.
The blueness of the Tekhelet, and the fact that the technology existed, whether it was by steam or whether it was by sun. I think that the ancient dyers were a lot more clever than we tend to give them credit for.
Sure, I'm sure. In my shiurim, you remember I said that chemistry was developed because of two tremendous needs and impulses that people have. One is to get drunk, and one is to have dyed clothes. And this is what pushed chemistry forward in the last millennium. So you're right. The ancient brewers were unbelievably advanced, and also the ancient dyers, no doubt about it. But again, I want to say that the biggest thing, in my opinion, is the Septuagint.
Yeah.
This, I think, is the most reliable source, more than the specific pictures. But again, I don't know.
Yeah.
Could I add something now? Rafi, can I add something now?
What's the question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Dr. Zeiderman wants to just add something, and I think we should keep it very brief. We've kept people a little bit longer than we wanted to. So, Dr. Zeiderman, if you just want to add something very brief, that would be wonderful.
Regarding the question of what the Gedolim have to say on this whole issue of renewing the Tekhelet, according to the discoveries which I made, I had a special meeting with the late Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, the greatest authority at the time, when I first discovered this whole issue in the 1970s. And I explained to him all of the evidence, scientific and halachic, that indicated this was a true Tekhelet. And he listened to me very carefully, and he said, I understand what you've said, and as far as I'm concerned, he said, I accept and I approve of what you have said, that this should be now used as the Tekhelet. But he said, I have one problem. He said, I remember when I was a boy, when if someone came to the mikveh with a Tekhelet of a regime, they threw him out. They wouldn't let him come in because it was something which had been disregarded. And therefore he says he's frightened that if he would now give his approval to Tekhelet, the new Tekhelet, then, which is the old Tekhelet, then they would say that he is a new regime, and this would spoil his status, but people rely on him as a posek accepted by throughout the world. And he said, I'll tell you what. He said, the situation is as follows. I accept it. In order to avoid this problem, when you find another posek, Gadol, who will sign that this is the authentic Tchelet, then I will add mine as the second signature.
It's almost like asking somebody if he wants to join a minyan. You're the 10th.
Right. I have to go now to daven mincha, as you just, at 7:20 we're davening mincha, and it's a special mincha today, Erev Yom Yerushalayim.
Oh.
And so I'll have to wish you all hatzlacha in all of our joint efforts to promote the future of a true Am Yisrael be'Eretz Yisrael al pi Torah Yisrael.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Okay, so we both, I think we factored in the bit of a delay. So it's already it's a quarter after. So again, we would love to hear from you and continue this discussion. So send any comments in the program, suggestions for future speakers, or follow-up questions for the speakers to interviews@tekhelet.com, and we will relay them. The sessions will be recorded and archived, and you will find them and more information about future speakers at tekhelet.com/Tekhelet interviews. Again, thank you very much, Rabbi Rappaport, for giving us of your time and being able to answer these pressing questions that a lot of us viewers have been wondering about.
Thank you.
And
thank you. And the main thing that people should know, that laziness is not a holy orthodox. There is a tremendous difference between these two drachim of לעבוד את Hashem.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I find that a lot of people are more so concerned how old the bottle of scotch is during Kiddush than they are worried about making mitzvah observance even better. That's what I've been finding.
Chatz v'shalom lekatregel Am Yisrael. Everyone really wants to do good. I'll tell you such an anecdote. I made Tchelet for my son. Shmueli was in Merkaz Harav. And he was a really Resh Shamayim, still is a Resh Shamayim. So he told me very simple. It says that Tchelet is mesudel to Yirat Shamayim. He'll test it by davening mincha with the Tchelet and see if it affects it. He says this was not the only thing. Everyone borrowed his Tchelet to daven. They all wanted a sivuv with davening with the Tchelet, and they said, wow, it changed them completely.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much. If there's anybody else, then we will conclude this interview, and this video will then be downloaded, edited, and uploaded onto YouTube, Facebook, and other social media channels for everybody to enjoy. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and on that note, I'm going to wish everybody a Yom Yerushalayim Sameach.
Thank you.
And very good. So I guess we can conclude the interview, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay.
השקט שוב צונח כאן משמי הערב, כי דאיית דיה מעל התהומות, ושמש אדומה נושקת לאט חרב, את הפסגות, המגדלים והחומות. ראיתי עיר עוטפת אור, והיא עולה בשלל צירי הקשת, והיא נוגנת בכנבל העשור. ראיתי עיר עוטפת אור, ראיתי עיר עוטפת אור, והיא עולה בשלל צירי הקשת, והיא נוגנת בכנבל העשור. ראיתי עיר עוטפת אור